My name is Bockelman. I'm from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. I'm an assistant professor at the computer science department. I work with several different scientific computing organizations. I work locally with the Holland Computing Center. I work at the national level with the Open Science Grid, where I'm the technology team lead. And then I work within the CMS experiment at the LHC, helping them doing distributed high throughput computing. Scientific computing has a lot of value and being able to reach various frontiers that aren't otherwise plausible. It allows us to analyze more data than we could as humans and to simulate things that are otherwise not something we could look at physically. In my case, I work a lot with the compact muon solenoid at the LHC, where they are simulating and reconstructing collisions that occurred at the subatomic particle level. And without scientific computing, these would simply be impossible. Yeah, within scientific computing, I do a lot of work with distributed high throughput computing. Particularly, this means I work with resources scattered all around the world and work to maximize their usage towards a particular problem. The example here being I do a lot of grid computing with the worldwide LHC computing grid and the Open Science Grid, where we might try to utilize 100,000 or 200,000 cores toward a particular problem, such as high energy physics, simulations, or other biology applications. Within high throughput computing, there's a lot of interesting questions about how you move data, how you manage resources, how you allocate resources, and once you have those resources, how do you orchestrate them together into a workflow? If you dig out enough layers, eventually you run into HT Condor, and it's been one of the basic tools that we've used and built on top of for a really wide variety of research, whether it's simple bag of tasks type computing, or if it's something large scale that requires lots of data intensive jobs. Underneath it all often becomes HT Condor, and it's sort of the Swiss Army knife of the field. For data movement and data transfer, we've used lots of different, or several different solutions throughout the years. A couple of them include things like XRootD, Globus Grid FTP, or CVMFS. Each one of those has its different best use cases and different fits within the field. So one of the most memorable challenges is actually working with the LIGO dataset and their observation run, where they actually found the first gravitational wave. We helped port a pipeline that was very compute intensive, but also required quite a bit of input data. Over a period of a month or two, we got it from being able to only work at a particular condor pool in New York to be able to work all across the OSG, across about 24 different sites, utilizing both clusters and exceed allocations. Not only was it interesting because of porting it to a larger scale condor pool, but we also had to, under a fairly small time frame, come up with a data distribution solution. We were actually able to move all of the LIGO input data to the University of Nebraska, which is about 10 terabytes, and then serve it out to all the various analysis jobs. And by the end of the day, we had moved actually about a petabyte of input data into jobs over the course of maybe 2 months. Within the distributed high throughput computing, resource management is always one of the largest challenges that we have. Resource management will incorporate things like how do I control how much a particular job uses on this one small cluster, to how do we orchestrate transfers between multiple clusters, to how do we best use a exceed allocation or supercomputing resource that may be very differently designed from what we normally utilize. So being able to describe what resources are available, how they interrelate, and how to prevent particular jobs or user processes from exceeding those allocations remains really not only one of the earliest things that has been studied in this area, but a continuing topic of study. If I were a grad student, the things I would want to learn are the fundamentals. Try to learn not just what's been doing in the last 3 or 4 years, say with containers or virtualization, but go back 10, 20, 30, 40 years, learn about multics, learn about the fundamentals of distributed computing, back before it was called grid computing or cloud computing. Things like Python or Condor might be great tools to learn for the next 10 years or even 20 years, but the fundamental concepts are going to help you survive for the rest of your career.